Incoming transmission.
Welcome back, everybody. My name's Murray. I'm your host, and this is Big Book Radio. I'd be so happy if I could just forget these even recordings on and stuff and just shoot the shit, right? That's what I'm really looking for.
Oh, but you're still conscious
It's
of
gonna
it.
take me, it's gonna take me some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Same as every talk I ever gave, right?
Right, like forget anybody's in the room.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens. It's clunky and slow, and then you start to remember, you get into the momentum, and then next thing you know, boom, you know. People want to make a big deal out of spirit or something, but shit happens. Something happens.
So you wanted to meet and talk about what the goal of the show?
Yeah. Well, how did we get here?
Like, how did we get to?
Right here, right now. I asked you to come here
Yes.
because you're a friend of mine in the fellowship of AA. We
Right.
met through Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yep.
And that's the name of a program that's famous for 12 steps around the world. All
Yep.
kinds of people are getting better following the 12 steps.
Yes.
And that comes from the book Alcoholics Anonymous, which we
Yep.
commonly call the Big Book, which
Yes.
is the title of the show because
Right.
I'm a student of the Big Book and you are too.
Absolutely.
And here
Okay.
we are. Now, not everyone is a student of the Big Book.
Who goes to meetings? No.
I didn't say that. And there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, in about 6 minutes we heard the first Kate laugh. Get used to it and turn your volume up.
Yeah, be aware of the shock value.
No, it's great.
So not everybody's a student of the Big Book.
No. And not everyone needs to be, probably, because it's for very, very sick people, we've found. Don't you think?
Yes.
Is there any people that get up Sunday morning and think I'll go to an AA meeting because, you know, life's good and
Yeah.
I want to increase my investment? No.
Yeah. I had a friend in AA in recovery in Toronto who used to say, I didn't go to my first meeting because I wanted to enrich my already wonderful life,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like
right.
you didn't, yeah.
Yeah, it was just before the bullet for me,
Yeah.
or the bridge abutment, or the deep river, or whatever it
Yeah.
was, you know.
It was before I was going to blow my head off, right?
Yeah, precisely. And that's been the experience of about everybody in AA that comes to the Big Book has been complete, utter, desperate bottom.
Right.
But what we've seen, and that's the legend, the lore of it. But what we've seen, I think, in our age is the bottom's coming up and people getting sick quicker.
Yes.
Or younger, or whatever that is, you see.
Right.
And then also, in what I've learned about how to work in the book is other people other than alcoholics with an alcohol problem or drug addicts with a heroin problem or a specific problem.
Right.
It can work for other people too, like depression,
Absolutely.
anxiety, sex.
Food.
Food. Oh, big time food.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of doing that now, right?
Yeah. Well, and isn't there over 500 groups that have started with the 12 steps?
Mm-hmm.
They've adopted the 12 steps for those exact problems,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Sex, drugs,
Rock and roll. There's
rock
gotta
and
be a
roll.
rock
Yeah.
and roll.
There was in Toronto at one of the churches on Jackman. They had a 12-step meeting.
For music or for rock and
No,
roll?
for people who don't have a 12-step problem.
Perfect. We're done. I can shut this off with this referral comments.
But I don't know whether it ever flew.
Of course.
Right? I don't know. Yeah, because it was the church that had all the 12-step meetings. But yeah. Yeah, so the 12 steps can, absolutely. Because alcohol only appears in one step.
It's only mentioned once.
Yeah, in the very first step, and that's it. And so you replace that word with anything.
That's right. So that leads kind of into what we've talked about before is the idea that we see on the internet people putting up memes and information and trying to awaken the public to
Right.
the powers that be, New World Order, Illuminati, Satan, whatever the problem might be.
Right.
Wake up and become aware of it, and so you can be able to do something about it. And then it reminds me of my first 4 years in AA. It was 4 years before somebody told me what to do. And then when I found the book, that's when the
right.
book says you do this, and then you do this, and then
Right.
it's very specific and there's no room for wiggle room.
No, it's a textbook. It's a directions, right? It gives you the outline in having a spiritual experience that will then help you be of service.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is is this, see, okay, so this is, we're having a pre-talk, but in the topics of this, I'd like to see us talk about what's thought to be recovery and what the book says is recovery, and what's the process in the book and what's the process, other processes, how it's different than meditation by itself. The 12 steps involve meditation, but
Right.
meditation on its own is often put up as, oh, you know, you can meditate your way into happiness, which may or may not be true. I don't know.
Right.
It's not been my experience. It's
Right.
a tool I use.
Right, it's one of the many tools used in the process of becoming more spiritual, more conscious, and more aware.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so are medications, and so are
Right.
our dance, and so are all kinds of churches, religions, tons of things seem
Right.
to achieve the same result, or
Part of the reason.
claim the same result.
Or I think our tools, yeah.
I think our elitism is showing, because I really feel that this is no bullshit answer for people that don't have any other answer.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It's the last.
The 12
answer.
steps are.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
design,
yeah,
the way
yeah.
to live. Yeah.
Yes, so the big book and the 12 steps are the design for living for those who don't have any other answer.
That's what. Yes.
Yeah, and so the intent of doing the big book radio is to share that.
To share
Share
that
the
process
design.
with people who might not think about it. Like, why would you think about going to Alcoholics Anonymous if you're having a good life, but you want to be more connected to your
Right.
to your angel self, or to a subconscious self, or
Right,
some
but you
other-
wouldn't, because the whole, well, because
Why
isn't
would
that step one, is that you need to kind of hit that bottom that you were talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And yet I see signs of a step one bottom in a lot of people I talk to on the internet now.
Right.
I mean, they're like, they don't know that might be an obsessive thing that's wrong with them. Like,
Oh, okay.
We've gone through that. I've been I'm not
Right.
warned, but I've been advised by some smart people, wise people, that said, remember who you're speaking to, because we've done this process, we're familiar with it, and people who've never heard of the big book are going, what? They
Right.
don't understand that the depth that you go to change your life in the big book.
Right, because they think that it's just the stop drinking
Yeah,
thing.
you quit drinking, you win, right? And
Right, yeah, no.
That's a common.
I quit drinking and I went crazy.
It gets worse.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
That's right, if it was just about not drinking, why would you need a big textbook to tell you how
Yeah,
to do
why
that?
would you care?
Yeah. Because
That's
it has to be a spiritual experience that's going to save your ass.
That's right. It's a catch-22 question. If anything
Yeah.
except that can save your ass, you're not an alcoholic of our type. You're
Right,
not
exactly.
The desperate type.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. Spiritually bankrupt, I think, is what it is. It's
Right.
what we find pretty early on.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing though, because there are people out there whose outside lives are okay, right? They have a house, they have a job,
Yes.
might have a partner, they might have kids, they have the RRSPs in the bank and all that stuff. So how does that spiritual bankruptcy present itself?
Without losing everything.
Without losing,
Yeah.
right?
Why should you? That's what I was trying to get at a minute ago.
Yeah.
Why should you have to die
That's right.
in order to enlighten and become enlightened? Is what, or awoken is what we're saying.
Right, because what I've discovered is that there are some people who acknowledge that they have a desire for a spiritual sense, or they have a desire for something,
Right.
but it's not tangible. It's not something that they can put their finger on, because they still have the house, they still have a career, they have,
It's easy to be distracted. Maybe is the thing too.
Yeah.
With a good life.
well, because if it's not going to save their life, their concrete physical
Right,
life,
right.
right? Their heart's still beating and they're still functioning.
Yeah.
Then why would you need to do this?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, there's not that sense of desperation. You know, and I've often thought about that with Al-Anon,
Okay.
because,
How do you ever get to Al-Anon? Is that what you mean?
yeah, well, and if Al-Anon, some Al-Anon members that I've met don't have that desperate need. So it's really hard to make that shift into giving everything over,
Right.
right? Because it's not a life or death
Doesn't
situation in
seem
the
to be.
same.
It's hard to see it because it's not your body shutting down.
Right, it's not a concrete.
Can we step back one second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Al-Anon, people who don't know what Al-Anon is, that's for family of alcoholics
Exactly.
or addicts.
Yeah,
Someone who loves a drunk.
that's right.
basically.
So family and friends of an
I went
alcoholic.
down and on for like 3 years when I first got sober. 'Cause if you
Yeah.
go to enough meetings, you belong in Al-Anon.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. You have enough people in your life, you belong to Al-Anon too. And I did too. But that was the difference I saw, is that in AA we have people who are trying to save their ass, so much so that
To
they're going to
live.
die,
Yes.
right? Physically die.
Yeah.
Whereas the other people who are out there who aren't going to physically
may not
die.
be at that point. But
Yeah.
yeah, and
So can they still do this? Can they still do the 12 steps? Can they still get the benefit of it if there's not that desperate?
I think we're going to hear from them now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, right now it's you
Yeah.
and I talking, but
Yeah.
I know I've been talking with friends online
Yeah.
and stuff, and they're going to listen to that. I know a certain amount of them are going to listen to this, and the network's pretty good. And,
Yeah.
and I hope, like I wanted to say at the beginning of that, is I wanted to start a conversation
Right.
of this is what we bring to help, and if we can't help you with that, fine. There's other stuff to talk about with the big book. It's not just recovery is one thing in the book. I'm fascinated with the history of the big book.
Right.
We think Bill Wilson sat down and wrote this out of his memory and just
No.
invented the 12 steps. This couldn't be
No.
further from the truth.
No.
That's one thing. The
Right.
other point is people think it's a new set of information that was given to us in 35, 39. At the very least, it was reworked from the Oxford group by way of the Washingtonians.
That's right.
And my contention is I can take that all the way back to like Hermetic days, Hermes, and really old places.
Yeah.
I haven't connected those dots, and I have friends that are going to help me with that.
Good.
But I see that coming up too.
Well, and if you stripped everything off the 12 steps and listed and even just discussed the bare minimum concepts associated with the 12 steps, and then took a look at all other world religions, you're going to find exactly the same basic principles.
That's right.
Right? You have a trust in a higher power or a god or a deity of some sort. Right? You have the acknowledgement of errors.
Yep.
Right? Christians call it
Restitutions for
sins,
harms,
restitutions for harms done, and then you're out being of service.
And yeah, commitment
Right.
for continuous growth and service.
And service, yeah, and then continuing that growth of conversation with your higher power, however that might be. So all of the principles and values are exactly the same as any other world religion, which is what I find interesting, because it's not a religion per se,
No,
right?
it's a process.
It's a
isn't it?
process,
I would
but
say.
all other religious sects have the exact same values and principles associated. It's just worded in a different way for us drunks to identify
Yeah.
with.
Which
right?
is interesting because you'd think if there was a best way to do something, it would be like codified. And they say, oh, the old stories were just repeated hand to mouth. How accurate could they be? Well, they didn't repeat the story about Martha meeting John at the well. They
Right.
repeated the very, very important stories. They never wrote them down until they knew how to write, but they
Right.
didn't write down the trip to Disneyland. They
Right.
wrote down the very, very important stuff. This is the stuff they preserved.
Right.
And so I don't think it's a matter of learning, it's just a matter of remembering or having
Right.
it put back
Yeah.
in front of us
Right.
and go, oh, this is how it is.
Right.
And if we can clear ourselves, my experience with the steps and with the book, the process has been after I stopped being obsessed about drinking, it says carry this in all our affairs. So
Right.
my life's just improved dramatically
Right.
from, I mean, you never knew me drinking, and we
No.
sort of laugh about that with each other because nobody wants that, right?
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to know you then.
No, and I don't
You wouldn't
wanna-
want to know me then
No,
either.
Exactly.
No, I was
But
sitting
today
at,
it's
yeah.
way better.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and it is the process, right? And I think that's what all spirituality aims for, is the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a quick fix either.
No, it's not endless, but it has definitely got a period of start and a period when you know you're finished.
Really?
For sure, I think so. Well,
Finished?
not finished.
Sorry. I'm like, really? Are we done?
That's one of those words. It's like cured.
I don't know.
I
When
saw a
I'm
meme
finished,
on the
I can-
internet. Amy Winehouse sober 3 years now.
Yeah. She's done.
She's been dead 3 years. She's cured.
Yeah. She's cured. Well, and that's it, right? Because I don't
guess-
trust that idea.
I think you can experience relief very quickly, but the process never ends. Like you can become recovered very quickly once
Right.
the obsession leaves you, is removed,
Right.
and you don't do it again, and you continue to. I feel like they're conditions of parole. Well, in step
Yeah,
3,
yeah,
I
fair
agreed.
enough.
In step 3, I agreed. I'm a dead man. You might as well do what you want with what's left.
Right.
That was basically my
Yeah.
step 3.
Yeah.
And I spent the rest of my time going, has it really been worth it? Because I'm doing a lot of work that I wouldn't really sit down and pick if I didn't feel like I needed to survive.
Well, and that's that sticking point, right? That's where I wonder if those who aren't at death's door are going to be willing to take this process. Yeah, and I mean, I think we need to. I just, in my head, I like to acknowledge that, but there are other death's doors that don't look like drunks. right? Like they're,
Oh, sure.
like
Like
I've been sober and been at
anxiety could kill
death's
you.
door,
Yeah.
right? Like been sober without a drink and needed to revisit this process because I forgot it, right? And
Or
so,
something else started to kill you.
yeah,
A different aspect, I guess,
Exactly.
of the same problem.
Yeah.
Self being the problem, right? Like
Self,
we're trying to
yes.
overcome self. We're
Right.
trying to overcome an out of control ego.
right,
And people say, well, I've heard on the internet and stuff, oh, overcome the ego, kill the ego. Well, that's not happening. It has to be found, identified. This is the aspect of myself. This
Right.
is the good parts. This is the inventory, right?
Right.
The bad parts.
Right.
And this is, that's the fact. And now I have to learn to live with that.
right,
I said at the first of this, how did we get here?
right,
I asked you to help me because friends online on Astrotheology Radio
right.
have a show. Lisa Risingberry and Andrea, I forget her last name.
It's okay, we never use
it's
last
along
names.
Covington Mulaney, Andrea. And they have a show that the listeners on the network will know them. And they asked me, because I'm in another group with them where we study these comparisons that I talk about
Right.
between the big book. And they asked me if I'd like to do a radio show on this network, some kind of a thing. And I said, right away, Big Book. I don't know why I did it. I could have picked anything else.
Right.
But it's supposed to be a spiritual network. So I was asked to help, and I asked you to help me. And that's the 12th step. We try to carry this message.
Right.
So it's not, I don't want to say an obligation, but it's like a duty. I feel like a need to try and help because I was kept alive with it, right?
Yeah, it's your process of being of service. You're feeling directed to be of service in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I never
quite
have
simple.
to wonder. Yeah, I know. It's just, it's persistent too.
Yeah, it
It's
was
all-
funny. I was talking to a non-alcoholic, and we were talking about. I don't know why I always have to identify that, but I do. Between my drunk friends and my non-recovering friends.
That's okay.
And he was asking me a little bit about what we were doing here, and I'm like, "That's carrying the message." And he's like, "Well, are you getting paid?" And I'm like, "Yeah, by not dying."
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, having a good life.
Right.
Connected life.
Connected, like, and being of service, and I do that in other areas of my life. I'm of service in
Yeah.
non-alcoholic recovery ways.
Yeah, you do
And
a
if
lot.
people ask me to do something and it can be of service to somebody else, that's why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to, but not people who don't
That's pretty
have their
rare.
life at stake in the same way we do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel
That's
compelled
true.
in the same way, right?
Yeah. That comes under the same category as you got to remember who you're speaking to because we do this on an ongoing basis.
That's
and
right.
most of the people we hang around with do too.
That's right.
So when you run into outside people go, well, what's in it for you? What's in it for you? And I'm like, well, lots.
My
Living,
heart's
breathing.
still beating.
Yeah.
I'm not drunk at the pub tonight. Yeah, and my life isn't in chaos anymore because of it.
Yeah, there's an order.
That's how I feel. So it seems pretty simple. You don't
Mm-hmm.
like you're doing this because you're called to
Yep.
called to do it.
Yeah.
You're
That's
being
good.
of service.
I just want to get it all down nicely so we can put it out there. And so
Right.
and then I want to keep using those clips that I told you. I don't know
Right.
how long. Again,
Yeah.
I want to shorten the clips down.
Yeah.
And who's the other one?
Because the attention span of listeners, I mean, I don't listen to the radio much except for CBC. But often clips aren't longer than 2 or 3 minutes, right? Like,
You'd be surprised. So you get on YouTube, you listen
Yeah.
to these spiritual teachers that are some
Right.
of them are channeling spirits and stuff.
yes, I love listening
And
to that.
They open their mouth and they start talking and they just talk for 2 hours straight. There's no
Right.
commercial. There's no, and I'm not against that.
Right.
But that's not me.
No.
I'm a person that likes to set things in a certain motion. And if that's
Okay.
a flaw, fine, go away. This is how I'm doing it,
Right.
right? And I have a design, and I'm going
Right.
to go by it. Yeah. I don't want to over edit, but I don't want to have people, like you said, attention spans wander off.
That's right.
I'd like people are going to talk to us and say, well, that clip was too long, or this guy's good, this guy, whatever, or
Right.
this guy's terrible, get rid of him.
Right.
But I want to bring Bill Wilson's voice into it.
Absolutely.
It's one thing we have is the guy who did all this, or is given the blame for it.
I love
Him
that.
and his buddies, right? They
Right.
pushed him to the front, and,
Right.
and so we got his voice on tape.
There's Bob too, right?
Bob
we have
a little
Bob's,
bit, a little bit. I'm gonna dig that up.
Because I
Well, I'm glad I got that opening sequence out of the way. It's like staring at a blank page or an empty computer screen when you first want to write a story. It's intimidating. I'm glad you got to meet Kate, my co-host. She's a wonderful person. We touched on the process of identification. I guess that's the first thing you need in order to even feel like you want to do this process, is identify yourself in the stories and in the experiences that others will tell you. There's no need to agree with opinions here, because hopefully no opinions will be expressed. They'll only be our experiences of a process that we were given. So with that, let me read from the big book how someone can get the confidence of another person. Let me have the big book tell you, page 18. But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. Let me change page. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. So let's have a listen to Bill Wilson and see if there's anything in his story we can identify with that would make us feel like there's something in this for us.
Two mixed drinks, one in front of me and one in front of my friend. And he said, "Gentlemen, these drinks are on the house in celebration of Armistice Day." Without a moment's hesitation, I reached over and I picked up mine and I drank it down. When I turned to my newfound friend, he didn't look smart anymore. He had the dumbest expression I've ever seen on a human being. And all he could say to me is, "Mister, you've got to be crazy. Absolutely crazy. After what alcohol has done to you, for you to take that drink, you must be insane." And all I could say was, "You're right, I am insane. I am crazy." That night, my wife found me in the areaway, the space between the outside door and the inside door of our home. I had fallen, the powder cut my head, and I was bleeding, passed out. Still clutching that bag of unused golf clubs. I didn't play golf that day. I got drunk and proved the doctor right. The next morning, full of remorse and pain and self-pity, I knew what I was. I knew that I was an alcoholic. And I'd be one the rest of my life. And I guess when I died and they pulled the glass over my head, I'd be a dead alcoholic. And there was nothing I could do about it. But I also knew that I'd be damned before I'd die in some insane asylum. I decided then and there that I would drink myself to death, or get the Dutch courage that I needed to take my life. And that's what I set out to do. For the next several weeks, I begged, borrowed, or stole the dollar bill it took to get the 3 little bottles of gin that it also took to get me over the edge, to get me drunk. Day in and day out, I sat in that empty house in Brooklyn, drinking myself to death, occasionally writing angry letters to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, telling him what a lousy job he was doing running the country. Letters I want to show you right now he never replied to. I don't think Lois ever mailed them. But that was my future, and that was my end, and I couldn't care less. That's how Ebby found me. Ebby T, some of you might know, from the rooms. I got a call one day. Old Ebby, my school chum, he said, "Hey, Bill, this is Eb. Can I come over to see you?" And I said, "Oh, Ebby, please do. I hated to drink alone." I truly did. Here was my old pal coming over to share an afternoon. We could reminisce and talk about the old days, and it'll be wonderful. I said, "Oh, please come over, Eb." And he said he'd be right over. And I then did what I consider to be a very heroic act for a drunk of my nature. I dug out the one little bottle of gin that I had sequestered behind the commode in the downstairs john. I put that on the kitchen table, and because I remembered that Eddie had a kind of a sour stomach, I also rescued a can of pineapple juice from one of Lois's pantry shelves, and I put that on the table and waited for my friend, looking forward to a splendid afternoon, because I was sure he'd bring a jug too. we'd have a great time. And while I was waiting, I was trying to recall an event that friends of ours, friends of Eddie and I, had passed on to me about him being in a kind of a scrape not too long ago, maybe a month or so before his call today. And it seemed that Ed, in one of his binges, had run his car into somebody's living room up near Albany. And when he climbed out of the wreckage, there was a woman sitting on the sofa, and he said to her, "Madam, would you please get me a cup of coffee?" And we all laughed about it because she got the cops instead. I must ask him when he comes, how did you get out of that scrape, Eddie? I'd like to know for future reference. That was a real bad scrape. I must ask him. Well, I didn't have long to wait. There was a knock on the door, and I went to answer it. And as soon as I opened it and took one look, I knew that something had changed. There was something different about him. He was clean, for one. His suit was nicely sponged and pressed. He had a blocked hat. His shoes were shined, and he was clean-shaven. I knew how I looked. I always knew how I looked. I had a pair of baggy trousers, wearing an undershirt, 3 or 4 day growth of beard. I used to go around with my brother-in-law's house slippers on. They were a size and a half too big for me, so I couldn't walk exactly. I had to slide around the house. Lois used to love that. She would say to friends, he polishes the linoleum wherever he goes. That's how I looked. Well, we said a few pleasantries in the parlor, and finally I said, Eddie, let's go back to the kitchen where it's a lot warmer, and where I knew the chin was. I also happened to notice, by the way, that he wasn't carrying a jug. He was empty-handed. Maybe he's broke. Well, he followed me back, and we sat at the kitchen table, and we shared a few more pleasantries, and finally both of us are eyeing the bottle of gin and the can of pineapple juice. I said to him, Ed, how would you like a little drink? And I reached over, and I started to pour one out, and he said, no, Bill. He said, no, thank you, not today. I said, you're not drinking? I said, you're on the water wagon, Ed? He said, no, I'm not. I'm just not drinking today. So what happened, old friend? This is news to me. He said, well, I guess you could say I got religion. Oh, my God, I thought, I've let a religious nut in my house. And then I realized, well, that isn't such bad news, because now all this liquor is mine. I don't have to share it, and I'm sure it'll outlast any rantings and ravings he might have about whatever religion he picked up. So I said, what religion have you found, Ed? And he said very matter-of-factly, he said, I guess you'd call it the religion of common sense. I had never heard of Our Lady of the Common Sense, so I dug a little further. I said, what do you mean, common sense? Well, he said, Bill, I don't know if you realize how much of a grip alcohol had on me. And right away I knew I wasn't going to tell him about what I knew. I said, no. And he said, also a perfect stranger. He mentioned his name, and he was a stranger to me also. He said, these people came to that hearing. And the stranger stood before the judge, and he said, Your Honor, turn him over to us. I think we can help him solve his problem. They're members of the Oxford Group, Bill. Have you ever heard of those? And I had. I said, yes, I know a little about them, having read some articles and some stories over the years in the society columns, a bunch of fancy bands that got together to overcome whatever drinking or drugging or gambling problems they might have. But it was a subject that I didn't want to know that much about, so I said, I don't know that much. He said, well, he said, I got involved with these people. The judge had nothing to lose, so he just turned me over to him. And after a while, listening to him, I took certain ideas peculiar to them, and I put it to work on my drinking problem. And it seems to have done the trick for me. Well, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And I said, well, what are those ideas, my friend? And he said, well, number one, I had to get honest with myself for the first time in my life and take a look at what alcohol had done to me. And then he said I had to talk it over with somebody else. In strict confidence now, I want to show you that. In strict confidence, I had to talk it out with somebody else. And then he said, I had to become willing to make up for all the harm that I've done with my drinking and with other things. I'll be doing that the rest of my life. Then also, he said, I had to also become willing to help people like myself. And when I heard that old Bill Wilson was holed up over in Brooklyn drinking himself to death, I said to my friends, let me take a crack at him. And that's why I'm here today. Well, I was offended.
I hope no one's having any problems understanding the old audio recording. We're lucky to be able to even hear his voice. And so I want to take a break now because I've found that the soul and the ego can only absorb as much as the earth can stand. So maybe, I know you can pause, but people seem to like to put recordings in the middle of their podcast. So this is what I'm going to do. This is copyrighted music I'm allowed to use without copyright infringement. It's John Q, Getting Harder. Welcome back. Now, I really enjoy that kind of music. It really seems to move things along. It makes me feel good about the mission that I'm on. Now, we've seen Bill have his famous meeting with Ebby in his kitchen table in his little house, what he was living in at the time. It's a famous scene in AA where he's encouraged by Ebby to choose his own conception of a higher power, his own conception of a God. Only you can define your higher power through your experience, and only I can define mine through my experience. And everything else is just semantics and a waste of time. So what I want to do now is continue on with Bill's earth-shattering spiritual experience, what he used to call his hot flash, and I'll let you tell in his own words how he recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body.
Done another terrible thing. I had no intention of checking out the Oxford group, drunk or sober. No intention. I just cost my brother another $125, and I also cost my wife not to speak to me. What a terrible, terrible thing to do. Well, I looked up and standing in the door, it was my friend Eddie. And the first thing I said to myself was, here's a fellow that practices what he preaches. I heard the staff mention how cold it was when they were coming in on shift, and here was my friend come out in that cold to see me. And all I could say was, here's a fellow that really works his program. And all he said to me is, gee, Bill, I'm sorry to see you in here again. I really thought you had it the other day, but I guess I was mistaken. If you ever need any help, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And he turned to go. I said, wait a minute, Abby. What was that little neat formula you had that you got from the Oxford people that got you sober? He said, simple. He said, you get honest, you talk it over with somebody else, you make up for the harm you've done, help other people, and you ask God for help, whatever God you've come up with, to do those four things. And he mentioned the G-O-D word again, and I said, thanks, but no thanks. I still gagged at the idea of a personal God. What a joke. What a waste. I lay in that bed, and the evening wore on, and it got darker and darker in that room until finally, in almost total darkness, in that bed of pain, I sank into one of the worst depressions of my life. And I was no stranger to depression, but this was one of the worst. I kept going down and down and down until finally it felt that I was at the bottom of a pit, a deep, dark pit. And then, for one brief moment, again one of those moments that Pete mentioned when he introduced me, for one brief moment, my proud obstinacy left me, and I found myself crying out, more in anger, I think, than in pain. If there is a God, let him show himself to me right now. I will do anything. Anything. Let him show himself to me. The room lit up in an intense white light, and I was caught up in an ecstasy that words cannot describe. In my mind's eye, it was as if I were on a mountaintop, and a wind, not of air, but of spirit flowed through my body. And it burst upon me that I was a free man. The obsession to drink left me. That obsession that absolutely pervaded my total being left me. Eventually the ecstasy subsided, and now I found myself back in that hospital bed, but this time surrounded in a presence of pure joy. And I realized, this number one man, that I was a part, if only a tiny part, of a universe ruled in justice and love by a loving, compassionate, personal God. And all I could say was, so this is the God of the preachers. This is what they've been talking about all these years. Eventually, I have one of these inquiring, rational minds. Eventually, the mind began to say, my God, Bill, this is the granddaddy of all hallucinations. This was that slide into madness that Dr. Silkworth talked about. This was the end. And I became frightened. So frightened that I got the nurse and I asked her to get Dr. Silkworth And she did. He came and sat alongside my bed, and I told him what happened to me. And he listened. And finally, I don't know where the courage came from, I said to him, "Doctor, is this it? Am I going insane?" And after a few minutes, his brow furrowed, and he looked up to me and he said, "No, my boy. No, I have never witnessed what has happened to you. But I've read about it in books, and it does sober up drunks, and I can tell you it's all you got. I saw you a short time ago, and I wouldn't have given you a tinker's damn for your life, but something has happened, and you better hang on to it. Because, again, it's all you have." And he left, and I slept like a baby. Next morning, I told Eddie what happened, and he went out and came back a few minutes later, and with him he brought a book called The Variety of Religious Experiences by Dr. James, the Harvard psychologist. He said, "Bill, you'll find what happened to you in this book." It's the toughest book I ever read, but I devoured it. Absolutely devoured it. And in it I did discover what had happened to me, the cash value of my experience, I call it, the scientific truth. This doctor had chronicled a number of experiences, some the illuminating type that I had, the sudden one that overcomes people. And then he also went on to illustrate the gradual experiences that other people have over a period of time through the help of other people or in fellowship or in service. They all undergo a transformation, a conversion. But the one thing that they all have in common, the one key ingredient, is a state of calamity. They're all in a sense of powerlessness and hopelessness before anything like this can occur. And this is what happened to me.
There we have it, straight from the horse's mouth. I'd like to flash forward about 70 years to where a young drunk named Murray had found the program and he was starting to go to meetings and starting to feel a little better just from the sheer not drinking of it all. I'd never tried to stop drinking before, and going to meetings and becoming acquainted with the process really kept me alive until the message of the big book started to sink in. And after 4 years, Don F. was put in my life, and this is the guy that took me through the process face to face of the big book and introduced me to the design for living that really works today still in my life. So we're very fortunate to have a recording of Don in Toronto at a Cocaine Anonymous meeting quite some time ago, but this is my teacher, Don F. from Edmonton, Alberta.
Our speaker is one of the pioneers of mucking, or what is also known as the booking process, which is a brief one-on-one process that jump-starts the 12-step program by facilitating the vital spiritual experience needed to recover from addiction. Tonight we'll hear about the history of booking, his experience about booking newcomers, and after the short break there'll be a question and answer period. If you wish to ask a question, please write your question on the 3x5 cards that have been handed out, and just put your hand up during the meeting and Kevin will be around to pick it up. Would you please welcome from Edmonton, Alberta, Don F.
Hi. My name's Don, and I'm an alcoholic. And I really love CA. I really do. And I love all the programs that work with the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had drugs affect my life, and I believe I'm speaking tomorrow night now. And I'll tell you what happened it was then. But tonight they want me to share of what happened to me. I didn't start the booking because I got booked myself. I got booked by a fellow called Huey, and he belonged to the Hill Group. And everything that's happened to me happened to the 100. So it's no big surprise that these things are happening. And when a person gets booked, like you can go to big book studies and you have a teacher and students. When it's over, I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm just saying what happens at the end. You have a teacher and you have students when they leave. But when you sit down, book to book, belly to belly, you end up with 2 teachers. And you multiply that. You've heard the old story, if you work for a penny, you add another penny. You get 2 pennies the next hour you work. The next thing you know, you're making $1 million an hour, right? This is the same thing that works with this booking. And it's been proven, because we are the proof. We are the proof. And we know that it's got nothing to do with us. And where I am now, I'm back in Edmonton, and the same thing is happening there. Right? And I have one fellow there. I booked him 20 years ago, and he's had 3 heart attacks, a stroke, and he works on the drag, he really handles the tough guys, And every once in a while you go to a meeting and you'll see a guy with tattoos on his neck and built like Charles Atlas, and walks in and he talks like a choir boy, So he bumped into Doug, And this is the change that happens, and and there's no choice. When you go through the book, it happens to you, and you can't stop it from happening to you, right? Because you have got no choice. It's going to happen. What am I going to say here now? I ended up. See, when you get booked, you have to be in the right position to be booked, And for me, when I first got booked, I was 12 years sober. Total loser. I had a great job. Total loser, right? And that's what I needed to make the change. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have changed. I had the willingness. Willingness started to come out within me. And I asked my God, I said, all I want to do is go through the steps once, just once, and feel like I've done them. Not, I know I couldn't do them perfectly, but just feel like I've done them, like I never thought I had them, And I was 12 years sober, and I came back to Toronto here, and confused, lost, and I bumped into a guy I knew, and he was completely upside down. He was different. And I looked at him and I said, "What happened to you?" And he told me, he says, "I got booked." And I said, "Wow, who booked you?" And he said, "This guy called Huey." Now, I didn't want nothing that he had. I wanted this guy Huey. So I went, I got it? Yep. And so I got a hold of this guy, and I but prior to that, I didn't slip or nothing, but I knew how to get rid of all this stuff that was inside me. It's like repenting. I do a 5, and I'd tell someone, and I'd feel better for a while, and go out and do a whole bunch of other crap, and feel better for a while, and that was my life, And so I got a hold of him, and I was going to do a 5 with him, and I sat down with him, and he looked at me, and so I presented my 5 to him, and he looked at me, and he said, "Would you like to recover?" And I said, "You can't recover." He always got this disease. I says, would you like to recover? And he showed me in the book how many times it said recovered in the book. And he says, recovered for a day, though. And I said, well, he said, how would you like to be 20 years sober and not recovered? And I said, well, I'm 12 now, So he said it'd take a few months, and I believe it takes 24 to 48 hours to do the 88 pages, like good, And so he said, let's put this effing war story away for a while, and we'll go through the book, Now, how he did the book, and everybody does the book differently, I believe that. He used to give me homework, And he'd say, read this chapter, and then we'd come back and we'd go through the chapter. And, and I'd do anything to be like this other guy that I seen, And so I did my homework. I think it was the first time in my life I ever did homework, And I did it, and it worked, And I had a spiritual experience, and I went through the steps, and my whole attitude changed, and I picked up this urge of wanting to help people, And so I booted out there and started walking the pavement and finding drunks, And so in about a year I did 15 guys, and but as everything, when you do things wrong, And I started to care about them, And I started to get a bit messed up, Because you look after 15 people and you can't even look after yourself. You're a mess, And so I had to run around and fire them all, So I fired all of them. And that was the best thing I ever did, I have friends now. I don't have sponsees, I have friends, And if they've done the 88 pages, they're the same as me. And I'll suggest things, but that's the way it is. So I did these 15 guys, and then I took off back out west again, and I did the same thing there again. When I came into town, I had some fear. When I went back to Edmonton after I got booked, I had some fear because people knew me one way, and now I was another way. And I really didn't know how I was going to react when I went to meetings. I really thought maybe I'd start talking like I used to talk, like whining, Like I was a good whiner, And so I got a hold of a friend, and I went to a meeting, and it didn't happen. I just say what I feel now, and I ended up booking a pile of people there, and they booked people, and this process works. It really works, and these guys are still booking out there, and we ended up with all kinds of guys. Then when I was out there, I was working in Fort McMurray, and I bumped into a trapper, and he was messed up pretty good, but he wasn't. He couldn't read very well, And I knew if I told him to do homework, I'd lose him, So I gave him no homework, And I just told him to bring his book, if he didn't have his book, don't come, That's what I used to say. And so he came with his book, and we finally got through the book, Like he could read, but, And that man turned upside down. Unbelievable, Things started to happen to him. He was jumping out of his chair. He was doing all kinds of things, and I ended up. Oh, geez, I quit smoking, but I sound like I am, and things started to happen, and oh, thank you. And when after that, that's how I started. I just kept on booking that way. And see, I honestly believe with the booking, everybody does it. It tells you in the book there that we use our own language when we help people. We're not clones. And this is the way it worked for me. So I took the pressure off the newcomer, and made him feel like I didn't care. Not like, and you look and you say, what do you mean you don't care? I didn't care. If he showed up, or if he didn't show up, but I was there. That's important, because he didn't need that this thing, or you should be this, or you should do that. None of that. And it tells you that in the book not to do that. And he changed. Then things started to happen after that. And some of the experiences, and I'm not saying that I'm doing all this. Other people are doing it, too. Like the people I booked, they started doing it. Things started to happen, and I ended up coming back here to Toronto after a while, and I came into town, and again, and the good Lord, I had a hard time making money, so I had to come back to Toronto, and I don't know what it was. I just loved booking people. I still do. I still do, and it's such a blessing to give, because everything I've got somewhere else. It's not mine. So, in other words, I really shouldn't even have an ego, but I got a big one. So, but I came back here to Toronto, and I went to a few meetings, and I bumped into Blair, and he was doing the big book thing there, and I ended up bumping in. I met a guy called Glenn, and he's not with us no more, but when I met him, I started booking him, and this guy shined, and he just shined. When he went to meetings, he was so happy to be straight. God touched him, and his favorite saying was, "I got the visit." And then he used to say, "I think that guy's got the visit," And that was our favorite saying, He got the visit, And so I would just get him in and throw him into a meeting, And we'd snap up a couple of newcomers, because they'd say, "Who is this guy?" They weren't looking at me, they were looking at Glenn, And so we'd snap them out, go to a donut shop, book them, and then we'd have two or more, and then it started happening. And then later on, we started. Then Glenn had a friend called Steve, and crazy. He was crazy, and he got booked. And there was little Richard there. He was running around, crazy as the bed bugs. He turned upside down. And then Blair, he was trying to start a big book study. And then we ended up snapping him up there, and we booked him. he ended up booking I don't know how many people, and he's still booking, you know. Then Steve, and there were so many. And there's Mary Lou here. She came in. We got Overeaters Anonymous in the crowd, and we were all a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we had all these different types of people in there, you know. And that's not tradition, you know. And Blair, you were president of AA, weren't you? No, but you know, he was in charge of all the treatment centers, and we got thrown out of there. And there was so many, and there was meetings there, and guys used to fall off their chairs, eh? And then Glenn would say, "That's the visit. The visit's here," you know. And it was, it was, This is so powerful, And it was given to me, And I'm far from, you know, it's just a blessing to be here, And this is, you know, I've had a lot of good things happen in my life. This is one of the top things. It's, you know, so we started, then there was a little guy. He's in California now. His name was Paul. And we call him Shotgun Paul. Because during the riots in California, he got shot. He was getting gas and someone put a bullet in him. And he came back. And he was so, you know, you go, boo! And the guy would have ran around the room. And we booked him. And he said, well, look at my books all mucked up. And that's how the muckers started. Then there was a fellow called John H. And he went and registers us as the muckers, after that, And that's how the muckers name came, A little bit of it came from everybody, And the me turned to the we. And then that started. And Steve did a pile of work in CA, and Charlie done so much. And when I first came to CA, I seen Charlie. I wanted to book that guy so bad. I got him though, and it's proven what he's done, you know. And there's Mary Lou there. She did so many ladies in the program. And Sue, you know, it's and this is how it worked, And I don't really know what else to say, but it was the big we did it, and I think we had 7 meetings going at that time. We had one at the Donwood, and we had 7 meetings. We had a bunch of noon meetings and some evening meetings, and but it was like throwing a whole pile of bulls and one cow in one pasture. Everybody, I don't know what it was, how we all split up, but it was. There's so many programs in the world today, and everybody went different ways, And the reason why I believe that was it's needed in these other programs, And it's sort of like it's like cells, And that's what I see, and it's happening in Edmonton there too. We got 3 meetings out there. We got even we got Nicotine Anonymous is doing the booking now, And what's happening there is the guys in the treatment center they're getting booked, and then they go to Nicotine Anonymous. They're trying to quit smoking, and they go, and the meeting's the same there as it is in, and it works, You know, and. But this is what I see has happened. It's It's happening in all organizations. It's sort of like when you get booked, you become that teacher. And being that teacher, you have it for the rest of your life. And there's no greater pleasure when you sit across from a person and you see that man or woman change. And it's got nothing to do with you. Nothing at all to do with you. And I have a lot of people say to me, well, I've booked this guy, and I've lost him in step 3, and I've lost him in step 2, or I've lost him in step 8. And I always say to them, it's got nothing to do with that other person. Why are you doing this? You're doing this to stay straight yourself. It's a blessing if the other person gets it. But you always get paid because you don't use, and that's what it's all about, and it's getting out of self. My problem is Don, no one else's, and that's my biggest problem. So what happened with the booking, the me turned to we. And by doing that, you take the pressure off yourself, because it's pretty hard to be a star, And God's looked after me so well that way, He has, I'm very happy to be alive and well. How much time we got left? We got another 25 minutes? Ooh, okay. I'm great on one-on-one. I'm not nervous here, but maybe I should talk about some of these people in the audience here. Do some inventories. No, I got to do my own. And that's what happened. And then I went back out west again, and I've been booking there now, and not as much as I used to. I'm a little older now. I'm a senior citizen now. And not only that, I even got a card to prove it. And I'm sober, right? And that's one thing I used to like about booking, when I booked, this is actually started as a government program, because I was on welfare, And I love booking people on welfare, because they had lots of time on their hands, and they could run around helping people, Jesus never worked, And so they ran around helping people, and good bookers, They were good bookers, And Glenn and I, and Danny, I got to mention Danny. I hear he's lost a pile of weight, but he booked so many people, And I can remember him. We had big meetings and good times, and a lot of lives saved, So many lives saved. When I look at the book, I think of the preference, And to show how powerful this was, Bill, Bob, and the 100 Bill sobered up in 1935. 1939, they wrote the book. So how they booked then, I don't know. But there was only 100 guys sober in 4 years. That's not many, eh? Not many at all. And these were the good guys, too. These were the good guys. But there was only 100 guys sober. In 1939, the book was published. And it says in the book, a great deal began to happen. In 2 years, 8,000 guys were recovered. 2 years. So, was it the guys? Or was it the book? It was the book, eh? So, and we proved that this is right. We've actually proved it. Now, if the book is that powerful, which it is, you can read that book and stay sober. That's how powerful this book is. But if you get someone who can work the book, it's like getting a private tutor. And this guy or gal will do it for nothing. What happens when you got a private tutor? Things start happening. And when you do it for someone, it's a pleasure. I've never had a bad feeling after booking, eh? Never. And I've looked across the table, and I'm sure that person's never had a bad feeling neither. They're usually laughing, and they wonder what the big deal was all about. Eh? And after you're booked, if there's any newcomers here, fear is removed. I had so much anxiety in me over the years. I used to wake up in the morning terrified, eh? And the next day I wouldn't be. And I say, why is that, eh? And I couldn't understand it, eh? I could not understand it. After I got booked, that left, eh? I still get anxiety every once in a while, and I get rattled, but I can walk over the corner, and it can be reversed, eh? And so the snake doesn't get me, eh? Like it used to get me. And you will recover. But there's a condition, eh? To keep it, you got to give it away. And by giving it away is not just by booking. It's like helping your family, doing your job, practicing these principles in all our affairs. It's step 12 is a big step. And I look at step 12, and actually when I'm talking about booking, I'm actually talking about step 12, helping others. Eh? And I'm overwhelmed here, I am. I'm having a rough time up here. But it's a good time, eh? See, that's the main thing. And when I look at, maybe I'll say something about, this is one of the things I've noticed in the program is, you know, you come in, you get the addict, and he comes in, and they say, we care about you, eh? We really care about you. That's why I was in here, because I cared too much, eh? I cared so much I wanted to use. I had to learn how not to care. Upside down. It says the care of God. Not my care. The care of God. And so I had to learn not to care, but to be very, very helpful. And the program is based on we don't support or oppose. So if you don't support something, you don't oppose nothing, you don't care. Right? I'm just sitting here, and but it says you got to be very, very helpful. The Bible says faith without works is dead. So you got to do the works. And what is faith? Not caring. Allowing God to do it. I was tied down with that sort of thinking. And when I say this at meetings, I get a lot of controversy. People says, "Oh, this guy don't care." But and they're right, I don't. But I'm helpful, and I love them. So I've turned my will and my life over to God. So I shouldn't have to worry. So if I'm worrying, I've taken my will back. Now it'd be nice to be able to do that, but I can't do it. But I have a program which will help me do it. So it tells me, and I have turned my will and my life over to God. I take it back, but I've done it. And I believe I've done it. And I believe that He's shown me. But the booking, any newcomers, there's so many people know this book now. And that's another thing, you get to know your book. Going back to Shotgun Paul, he got booked, and when I was booking him, I walked in to go to the washroom, and I came back, and he was a different man. It blew me away. I still shake about it. He was different. And so right after that, I went to a meeting, and here he was talking to some guy that had about as much sobriety as I have now, and he was going like this with the book, And he would have never done that before, because he knew the book, but he was going like this with this guy. And this guy was going like this, and he left, and he was mad, and I was walking down the street with him, and he was telling me what was going on, and I said, yeah, and then he left, Well, he's in California now, but he was wrong. But I couldn't have the heart to tell him that. That's the way he was, And this is, he changed, And if you want to change, if you want things to happen to you, find someone and get it done, And this works, And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's such an honor to be here, and thank you for keeping me alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. All right, we're going to go into some Q&A here with Don. So, Don, if you can come up here. And we got some very interesting questions for you. I'm sure some of them will put you into the hot seat. But the first question, which I think is really a good question, and I think a question that's on a lot of people's mind, and that is, could you outline the process of booking?
Yell it out? Oh, okay. Humble Don, yeah, okay. Outline, you mean when I first meet a fellow?
Yeah, just basically how you take them through.
Okay. What I do is when I look for a loser, eh? A real loser. Because if he's not a loser, he's not going to get better, eh? It's that simple. And so I say to him, I just ask him, I says, are you a loser? And he goes, because addicts hate being called a loser, eh? That just turns them off, yeah? You know, sometimes I show the real, are you a real loser, you know? And if they say yes, I'll work with them, eh? And because I believe when a fellow's in that position, God can touch him, eh? And if he's not in that position, you're just wasting your time, eh? That's what I believe. And then I ask him to go to a coffee shop, and we go to a coffee shop, and I sit down and I tell him my story, eh? In a short way, I tell him what happened, and then I look him right in the eyes, eh? And I say to him, it doesn't have to be this way. You can recover. It doesn't have to be this way. And for some unknown reason, that shakes him a bit. And I say, and I mean it too. I'm not lying to you. And I say to him, when I called you a loser, I'm not putting you down, because I'm a loser too, eh? The only difference with me is the fellowship and God make me look like a winner, eh? So I'm the same as you. So I'm not looking down at him, eh? And then I tell him what we're going to do, and I go to page 18, which describes our relationship, because it's very important for our relationship to be right, eh? And it says in there, it tells me what he has to do. All he has to do is show up, say yes and no to the book, and circle a few words when I tell him to circle it. And if he can't do those three things, he's gone. It's history, eh? And that's the only control I have over him, eh? Is that time I work with him. He's got his life. If he wants to use and die, he can. If he wants to get better, he'll show up the next time. And then it tells me how I'm supposed to act. And this is very important. No people to please. It's got to be free. Has to be free. No lectures. I don't know what's good for him, eh? I really don't, or her. I don't really know. And it tells you there, and it says, there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to endure. These are the conditions that we found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. And something happens, eh? I don't know what happens, but it happens, eh? Because I haven't got nothing to do with it. And then I put them through spiritual experience. And I get to try and explain when these things happen to you that it's okay, that all of a sudden you go out there and you feel really, really good and you don't know why you're feeling good because you've been feeling shitty for so long. And it's okay. And then after that, and then I put him through the 1s, 2, and 3, find out if he's an alcoholic or drug addict, or and then he learns he's a number 3. He has no, and this could be for worry, it could be for food, it could be for anything. It works for everything, eh? And I know that for a fact because I've done them all, eh? And then after that, and then I say, then we make one appointment, eh? And I go to the appointment. If he shows up, he shows up, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. I never call him again, eh? You know, he has the right to go out and have his life, eh? But if he gets the visit, which most of them do, and what I find with addicts, when you do this with them, they're relaxed and they feel comfortable, eh? Because everybody in the world has been telling them what he should do and what he should not do. And it works, eh? That's my formula. And so I've done some good fishing, eh? And that's what when I book anybody, I try and teach them how to fish, eh? And most guys love it. Most guys and gals like it, eh? Because it's, you know, we love power, eh? And it works, eh? It works. And it's worked for me for years. And that's how I do it. That's my first encounter. And once you book them, they can be friends for life, eh? It's happened to me. Okay. I take them through 88 pages. I go through the 88 pages, and step 12 is theirs, eh? And Hoy Hugh, he used to say, no, after he booked me, he says, no, you go out and help someone, eh? You know, I've done my job. And step 12 is a lifetime job, eh? It's just lifetime. I'm doing my step 12 all the time, and it's new for me. And it's in 3 phases. It's helping the family. It's booking. But 88 pages. That's all I do. And that's about it.
Thanks, Don. Okay, the next question is, how would you address all the controversies about the different styles of booking methods? We've got circlers, we got highlighters, we got underliners, we got people who, you know, take the book home and read it. There are a lot of varieties out there. And, you know, some people say, oh, that's not the right way to do it. Oh, you weren't booked properly. That's not how you book people, and so on and so on. How would you address that controversy?
I don't care.
Thanks, Don. Okay, could you please share your experience around your prospects balking at the process? For example, their unwillingness to pray, meditate, do daily inventory consistently.
I don't care.
How would you suggest booking a codependent? Shouldn't they book themselves?
That's a good one. I book myself lots of times. You know, when I let the committee go. You know, codependents. I look at them as just warriors, and I believe I'm a codependent. If you don't walk with God, you are. And with me, I use the word worry when I book them. And see, if I use what's my biggest problem after I recover is worry. And so, in other words, worry will drive me back to drink, to smoke, to do any worry does it. So in other words, when I remove worry, and what is another short word for worry? Fear, or I care too much, Self. So in other words, step 3 removes worry. Because I've turned my life and my will over to God. So in other words, if I've done that and I worry, I'm into self, in some way, shape, or form, And so when I book them, and warriors, they turn big time, They turn big time, And you just, when you got drink, you just write down worry. And it works. And it's good to book a few warriors. Because what happens when you put them through the book, you go through the book yourself. And you see the problems that you have. Big time, And I love to be free, No, this program has given me freedom. And when I worry, it puts me in a box, And this world has got so many problems, And worry is one of the big ones, And once we recover from using, we automatically jump into worry. For me. And I look by your faces, I feel a few of you people have done it too, But that's what I find. That's all.
Thanks, Don. Okay, this has to do with relapsing, and there's kind of 3 parts to it. When someone relapses, should you take them through the steps again? And more specifically, if you're booking them and they relapse as you're going through the booking process, how do you handle that? Do you go back to the beginning and start booking them from the beginning again? Do you cut them loose? And also, someone who's been through the process, they've been booked, they know their book inside out, but they can't stop relapsing, and yet they claim they want this deal. What are your thoughts or recommendations in that kind of a scenario?
Well, I believe slipping, they're learning how to stay sober. That's what I believe, or it's a process, And I don't make a big deal out of it. I always say time means nothing. I got a lot of time in, but it means nothing. I'm just for a day. And so when they use and they come up to me, and I just say, well, I says, and it tells you in the big book, It tells you in the big book what to do. It says it's a learning process. Slips are good if you learn something by it. And when I'm booking someone and they slip, I believe booking's like going to school in a way. You learn how to add and you learn how to subtract. Like, if you have a bad day, you don't forget it, So in other words, when you book someone, they know it, It's in their head, So in other words, what I used to do is fine-tune some people. But usually when they use, they're making something in their life very important, And that's a log, And when you do that, if you're an addict, it can get you in a lot of trouble. Because you're caring too much, And it tells us in the book, we have to go to God, And you're worrying too much, And so I tell them, I mean, I'll go through I won't rebook them though, because, like 44 pages of telling this guy that he's, nothing works, until you hit page 45 where God works, And, so in other words, he's learning that these things don't work. These things that he's making important are not that important, You have to look after them, but they're not that important compared to using, because using will kill you, But I don't make a big thing out of it, and I had a slip to get what I got until it was beat into me that I have no choice but to do this program. I have no choice. No choice. Choice is for ones and twos, But for me, it's not. I can't afford to do it because I'll die. And that's for me.
Thanks, Don. The next question is what are logs, and what's the difference between a 1, 2, and a 3?
A log. Well, log on. A log is something you drag around with you. So I always say that's a log. And everything in this world is a log. And so you're carrying this log around with you. And you can notice it when someone's booked, because they're free of all these logs, and they're bouncing all over the place. They're going, and that is, they're free. Now you have to look after them, but they're not important, And this is when I say when you book people, when you're going through the steps, you go through all the logs. You say, this don't work, that don't work, family don't work, your job, intelligence don't work. That's logs, God works, But by the new fella going through the book, and he's writing all this down, and then he finds out he can't work, he's a log, then something happens, and then he's touched by God, and then he's free. And the longer he's sober, and the longer he does the program, he perfects this, and he gets better at it. It's like playing pool. The more you play, the better you get. That's all.
And 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, 1s, 2s, and 3s. 1 is a moderate user. 2 is a heavy user. And 3, we're all 3s. I don't need to tell you about what a 3 is.
Thanks, Don. Okay, there's a lot of programs out there, and then, we get into this substitution, like there's the methadone program, the marijuana maintenance program. What do you think about these substitution programs?
I don't really know. I won't use them, I know that. See, there's... If you use anything to make yourself feel good, that's what I believe. Like I try and be as natural as I can. And, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know about this methadone. I don't know much about it. But what I do know is I love reality now, I don't want to space myself out. And I know marijuana spaces you out. And you live in a fairy tale. You're not living in true reality. And all my life I lived in a fairy tale, and I love reality now. And I'm getting better at it. And that's about it.
Thanks, Don. In a close relationship, how do you not care and only be helpful?
Say a lot of prayers. Say a lot of prayers.
Are the muckers a cult?
Well, what is a cult? Is AA a cult? Is CA a cult? Is the Roman Catholic Church a cult? They all have. It's sort of like the Book of Secrets. There's secrets in it, and to learn the secrets, you have to go in them. So I don't know the word cult means, but I do know you have to read the big book to find its secrets, and you have to read the Bible to find the secrets, or the Quran, or whatever you're reading. There's all kinds of secrets, and the big book is known as the Book of Secrets, and that's why I stress one-on-one, because someone can help you see those secrets. Christians have been doing it for years. You did, and the Jewish people. I see Steve there. Oh, sorry. God love you, Steve. But see, there's secrets, and they're from God, And people who don't know the secrets, they call things cults. That's what I believe.
Thanks, Don. Okay, there's two parts to this question. Why did a lot of old muckers go into meetings and start controversies, i.e. yelling at people, etc.? And why do you suppose there is controversy about the mucking or the booking process?
You're reading my mail. Well, what happened there is a lot of times I feel when people when they get booked, they get so high, and they want to shout it out, and that's a sign of being in the Spirit. They felt so bad for so many years, and they want to express themselves, and nothing's worked except this. And for them, I'm not saying that this is the only thing that works. I won't say that. It's the only thing that worked for me. I know that. I can say that. And I've done it. I've never seen a newcomer not do it, being honest with you, because I think it's a process of getting better. And once God touches you, people start attacking you, and controversy is a part of life. And I've had it all my life. I've been booked for over 20 years or so, and I'm still getting it, And I do try not to harm anybody, but you got to say what you believe in, And I really don't care what the guys do, I'm not running around policing them. When I book someone, I look at him and I say, wonder what the heck he's going to do with this thing. And because it's not my job to correct them. It's not my job to correct them. It's not my job to correct anybody. That's all. Thank you.
Final question. Tell us a little bit more about those people falling off their chairs.
Well, I never fell off my chair, so it's pretty hard for me to tell that. Well, we just, in the early days, we had these guys, and we would have people walk in, and they'd be jumping all over the place as soon as they walked in the door. And there was such enthusiasm in those times. We were just all buzzing, it's one of the best times of my life. I've booked in all kinds of places, but this little place was very special. And I can see by the people who are still booking and what's happening, it's massive changes to people. There's Mike over there. I'm just looking at Mike, drugstore Mike. My God. God love him. Susie there. It's so, if you guys keep praying, you'll all be falling off your chairs.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, it's nice to hear the voice of my teacher, Don. I love that man. He really helped me to open my eyes, open my heart, and to really see the world for what it is and how I can live comfortably in it. It wasn't him that was the message, but he brought the message to me. And it's a wonderful way to live my life. I'm glad you got to hear Bill Wilson tell the basis of the experience we aim to have as students of the book, and I'm glad you got to meet Kate, my co-host. I hope to have her interview me and I interview her, and between us I think you're going to see we talk to quite a number of people that can open this conversation up to more people. There's room on this broad highway for many, many kinds of spiritual and non-spiritual people. No, I hope I can hear from people who have been in the book themselves, Alcoholics Anonymous members, other 12-step members, and other spiritual practices who may listen to what we've talked about and say, boy, that's a lot like what we do in our experience. And I'm really interested in this conversation, elaborating and spreading, and what could possibly be wrong with more knowledge and a way to live that is broad and encompassing for all. So please join us next time. I'll be glad to answer questions and have conversations and comments as long as we can be respectful in that forum. I'd also like to thank Ruth Ramos in Portugal from Astrotheology Radio, also Lisa Risenberry and Andrea Covington Mullaney for putting these ideas in my head and letting me know it's something I could do. And thanks for listening, and I hope you keep coming back.